Welcome to Guest of the Year. I'm the host. My name's Mike. A couple things before we get going. This is the third to last episode of the main tournament of Season 2. And then we're going to do a couple different format episodes. And then we'll do the Tournament of Champions. And that'll be it for Season 2. I want to thank everyone for listening and coming on and supporting the show. To commemorate the end of Season 2, we have a shirt that's live for pre-sale on guestoftheyear.net. That link is also in the show notes. That shirt will be live for 48 hours and then it's gone because we want to get the pre-orders out to everyone as fast as possible so we can't have a long pre-order. So today's the day if you want to support the show. I really appreciate it. We're trying to sell 100 shirts. If we can do that, it pretty much pays for the show. We still have never charged anyone for doing prize packs. That's really, really important. Yeah, so if you dig the show and you want to support it, I really, really appreciate you picking up a shirt. Help us towards our 100 shirt goal. And the shirts are really cool. They're designed by the poster artist Dillon, aka 30,000 Feet. Really put a lot of thought and care into these, and they're really cool. They pay homage to the keyboardists. If you click on the link, you'll see what I mean. Also, we would never allow people to wear this shirt while they play Guest of the Year. Again, if you click on the link, you'll see what I mean. Thank you so much again for all the support and all the love. Guest of the Year is the most meaningful project I've ever done in my life, and I can't tell you how much this community means to me, so thank you. On the topic of community, this week's curator is the Guest of the Year listeners. I sent out word for a mailbag on Reddit, and you guys did not disappoint. We had some awesome picks sent in along with audio recordings of everyone's kind of rationale explanations. We're definitely going to do another one of these mailbags at some point. All right, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year their performance is from. Contestants who were all on a video conference together can message in their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest from the correct year is eliminated. The last two deadheads standing will hear 3 tracks, and whoever is closest to the correct years in aggregate wins. We've got our 2-time returning champ Henry with us, and we'll meet the rest of the deadheads in a moment, but first, without further ado, the Grateful Dead. The guesses are in. It was a jam at Stanley Theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on March 5th, 1981. That was sent in by Tomas, who's from Darien, Connecticut, and he's 15. Thank you, Tomas. Here's his explanation.
Hey, Mike. The track I chose to submit today is a Set 2 opening jam at the Stanley Theater in Pittsburgh on March 5th, 1981. This jam is special from the rest, as Jerry isn't even on the stage while it happens. The set was supposed to start with a passenger, but his equipment malfunctioned. Instead of the rest of the band waiting for him, Bobby led the band on a crazy 7-minute jam. This jam is Bobby's time to shine, and it really features his cool guitar style. Ever since I became a Deadhead, Bobby has been one of my favorites, and I thought this jam was the coolest thing ever when I first heard it, as I'm sure others will too. I also hope contestants will have a tough time guessing, for obvious reasons. And one cool story about me. Last time I saw Bob at the Capitol, I got his signature on a Wolf Bros vinyl, and now it's just framed in our house. Thank you so much. Love the podcast.
That's an incredible pick by Tomas. Thank you, Tomas. Thanks for listening. Sean was closest. Sean is 44 from Germantown, Tennessee. Sean, you guessed 82, only 1 year off. Why 82?
The guitar did sound like nothing I'd ever heard on a Dead Jam, but I was really just going on the keyboard sound, just the plingy plingy. I definitely thought I only heard one guitar, and that made me curious, but I wouldn't have guessed it was Bobby shredding. Very, very cool.
Thanks, Sean. That's a really nice poll given the lack of information there. Luke was next closest. Luke is from Encinitas. Luke guessed 85. Why 85, Luke?
A little bit like Sean, definitely the keys got like, that's where I was like, this is definitely Brent. And truthfully, it sounded a little sloppy to me. And that's why I went with 85 was still a stab. So
It's funny you say you almost guessed 87 because Henry and Aron both guessed 87. So everyone's on to the next round. Aron is 52 from Toronto. Why 87, Aron?
So I knew it wasn't Garcia. And as I've been practicing for this, I go with my gut when I'm not sure. And my rationale was that later 80s was when there was more guests involved. And I was like, great, this is like a guest guitarist. I've never heard of this show. I don't know what the hell this is. And I was going to say 85 because, again, and I should have gone earlier because of the keyboard sound, but I was like 85. And I just said go with the gut. And I did 87. So
nice. Well, that makes total sense. Henry, were you thinking the same thing in terms of guest guitarist? By the way, Henry is our 2-time returning champ, and he's 18 from Indiana.
Yeah, basically the exact same thing. I almost thought it was Bobby based off the tone, but I was thinking like, I have never, even his lead playing, I never ever heard him play like that. So I kind of assumed it was a guest guitarist. And I was like, late 80s had a lot of guest guitarists. I was almost thinking it didn't sound like Santana, but I knew that like around this time, Santana did like a Fire on the Mountain, and it kind of sounded like a Fire on the Mountain jam to me. So I'm like, I took a like wild guess. I knew it was like not Jerry, definitely, especially because I didn't hear him anywhere. And it didn't sound like anything he would ever play.
What about it was so un-Jerry-like stylistically?
Well, the tone, first of all, because like he used distortion a lot, but I never ever heard him hear him use like a chorus kind of thing. And even his distortion sounded different. And I think that like Jerry's like when he would shred, it was a whole different kind of, it just sounded completely different. When he would like shred, I feel like he would kind of do like almost chords and not so much a lot of notes. A lot of stuff like that kind of was like this. There's no way this is Garcia.
Thanks, Henry. Good explanation. Well, everyone's on in the next round, and there's another pick from the mailbag here. Darkness Jam into China Cat Sunflower at Fillmore East in New York City on September 19th, 1970. That was sent in by Josh from Newfane, Vermont. Let's hear from Josh.
Yeah, so I picked this one for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't think 1970 gets quite enough love. I mean, in addition to releasing two incredible albums, there's just some amazing shows from that year. The only reason it's not up there with some of like the other years surround it is because Bear was in prison and there's not a lot of great recordings, but what we have is just mind-blowing. The other reason I picked this is I'm kind of a big fan, big nerd about named jams. So like Mind Left Body Jam and Feeling Groovy Jam and of course Beautiful Jam. And this Darkness Jam is something they only played a few times. And in fact, I'm not even sure the other times they played it, it was really the same or related thing. This piece of music is, in my mind, pretty unique. It's in the middle of a Not Fade Away. They go into Darkness Jam and then they race into this like really ramped up China Cat Jam, which is just like they're doing the riff. They're not even singing the song, and then back into Not Fade Away and Incredible Dark Star, that show as well. So that's why I picked this one and love the show and happy to contribute to my favorite podcast and community.
Thanks, Josh. Killer pick. Only one person got it exactly. Sean, 1970. Talk to us, Sean. Nice poll.
Thanks. I think 1970 might be my favorite year. I really do. It's just some of the most molten jams, really out there psychedelic stuff. And psych is where I came from. And that's my favorite era is definitely an Anthem, Oxomoxua, Live Dead. And I feel like 1970, they're really putting the cap on all that stuff and just kind of blowing it out to the maximum.
Lovely. Thanks, Sean. Next closest was Luke at 69. Luke, why 69?
Yeah, I love 1972. And I felt like the sound was like in that jam. It felt like a little bit primitive, like right in that transition into early 70s. So I just take a stab right in the middle.
Awesome. Henry and Aron both guessed 68. You guys are in lockstep here. So everyone's on the next round. Henry, why 68?
Mostly because of Jerry's guitar, 68, 69. For some reason, I just didn't get a lot of 70. To me, like 70, his guitar and everything kind of started to clean up. And I definitely, it's definitely not there. Especially because, like, when I think of 68, I feel like Mickey used the cowbell a lot. And I heard a lot of cowbell there. And one thing, Jerry and Bob were like at equal volume, which sadly you don't always hear in like past 70, basically. Usually when I hear Phil, Jerry, and Bob all at the same volume and everything's just kind of like, distorted like that, I kind of immediately go to 68.
Great explanation, Henry, as always. Aron, what'd you hear there?
I agree with Henry. I think we're studying from the same book here. Like, to me, yeah, the cowbell, I swear I've never done this before. I've never guessed a year based on what the drummers are doing, of course, on the number of drummers. But I was like, yeah, that just sounds like not terribly interesting Mickey hitting a cowbell, So I thought that was, I pushed that back a few years. I would have maybe said 69 if there was a little bit, like if there were some keyboards that were more audible in the mix. So I just, 68 seemed for some reason to be logical to me.
That's a good idea because TC is pretty noticeable in 69. Everyone's on the next round. This is fun. More mailbag picks coming up. The guesses are in. It was an Eyes of the World jam at Boston Music Hall on June 9th, 1976. That was sent in by Will from Highland Park, New Jersey. Thanks, Will. Let's hear from him now.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to select a song for this week's episode. It's really cool to see how big the show has gotten since I was a contestant probably like 2 years ago. Anyways, the song I picked is Eyes of the World. It's from 6/9/76, Boston Music Hall. I think this might be my favorite Eyes of the World. And since Eyes of the World is my favorite song, maybe it's my favorite version of my favorite song. But they have this crazy 8-minute intro jam before they even get to the first verse. And the first time I heard it, I was like just transported. And especially at the part that I selected here, where they go into that G sharp minor jam in the middle of the jam. I believe, I forget who was talking about it a couple episodes, but they only did this really in like 73, 74, and 76. I guess I don't even know if they played it in 75, but going into that minor and then coming out of that major, I was just like, that was the moment like that clicked with me and made this song just so important. And I just think it's such a magical moment. Yeah, so hope it wasn't too easy of a pick. And thanks again.
Thanks so much, Will. Great pick. Only one person got it exactly, Aron. He's on to the next round. Someone is eliminated this time. Aron, nice pull, 76. Talk to us.
Two drummers that obviously put that in a range, and the guitar tone, there was just a lot of indicators that said not 77 to me. That was pretty much it.
Nice, Aron. Thanks. You're on to the next round. Joining you is Sean and Luke. Sean guessed 77, Luke guessed 75. And our two-time returning champ, Henry, guessed 74. We'll get to Henry in a sec, but let's talk to Sean, who guessed 77. Why 77?
Well, I was leaning 76. My gut instinct was 76. And then I got nervous and thought, well, it could be 78 for all I know. I'm just really not sure. So I changed it to 77 at the last minute just to kind of cover my ass. But 76 is where my heart landed. I should have stuck with it.
Well, you're on to the next round, Sean. Joining you is Luke, 75. A dramatic guess. Were you like splitting the difference between drummers there? Or were you playing the game a little bit?
I was 76, but something about Bobby's tone felt a little bit unpolished. That's what it got me. But Jerry felt right in there, like fall 76, you know? And I kind of went like, oh, format of the show, but it's been so far, it's kind of shit. I'm going to go with an obscure year, you know? And so that's where I went 75.
Cool. Henry, you've had an incredible run. Well, first tell us about 74.
Well, I didn't hear two drummers. I should have paid attention more to that. I could have swore I heard wall of sound almost. That's what I was going for. And I knew that the minor eyes jam didn't really happen it didn't really happen until 73, 74, and I guess 76. I'm not super familiar with 76, so I guess 74.
Henry, you've kind of blown everyone away over the past few weeks, and you've already blown us away this week, to be honest. I can't wait to have you back for the Tournament of Champions. It's been a total pleasure hearing your analysis and chatting these past few weeks.
It's been amazing, and I'm so glad I got to be on here, and I'll be back for the Tournament of Champions, and just thank you so much. And it's been really nice. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Henry. You rule, man. Okay, so Aron, Sean, and Luke are on in the next round. Let's hear the next mailbag pick. All right. The guesses are in. It was a Spanish Jam at Marin County Veterans Auditorium on March 29th, 1984. That was sent in by Rob from Maplewood, New Jersey. Let's hear from Rob.
I love this version of Spanish Jam. This performance is from the Dead's second show of 1984. It was a part of a series of Rex Foundation benefits. The first benefits the Dead did in support of the Rex Foundation. This was a hometown performance at the relatively small Marin County Veterans Auditorium, which has 1,500 person capacity. The Dead were playing, I think, 5 to 10,000 capacity venues at this point. Imagine seeing them in a small setting like that in 1984. Spanish Jam is just special in general. It's an instrumental, number one. It's a rarity. It wasn't played that often, although it was played more frequently in the early to mid 80s. Like other ones, this one forms out of a really nice space and then segs into the other one. It's a really perfect placement. This is a patient, tense performance. It's dark and haunting, and it's that side of the Dead you just love. You feel it. It's sparse, and so you can really hear them, speaking to one another like a conversation. And the sound, Brent's keyboard sound, is just out of this world on this one. I love it.
Thanks, Rob. Another person who loved it was Aron, who guessed 84, and he's on to the finals. And he sent in his guess relatively quickly. You must have recognized it.
I didn't recognize that show. And for me to give you the full answer, we don't have time for that. So it was just, I just knew it was 84.
Is there a truncated version?
I'll try. The show that got me on the bus was the last show from that run, was 4/1/84.
So similar tones there, probably. Great.
Yeah.
Nice work, Aron. You're on to the finals. Joining you is Luke, who guessed 91. Sean guessed 92. So clearly you guys were thinking the same thing. You're not crazy here. Luke, what were you thinking?
I just thought it was out of in a weird time range that I just have very seldom investigated, truthfully. So I couldn't place it.
Well, you did well enough to make it to the finals. Nice work. Sean.
By 1 year.
Luck.
Sean, 92.
Yeah, it sounded kind of sinister. And for some reason, I associate the early 90s with a sinister vibe and the space parts. It kind of came to me too late that it was a Spanish Jam, which I'm not super familiar with. And I just, the 80s and 90s are not my wheelhouse at all with as far as the Dead. Going ahead and letting you know a little bit about my Dead origins. I was a teenage skater kid and, was very into rock and roll and just psychedelic sounds I would hear on the radio and compilations like Nuggets. And I was really into the 60s psychedelic vibe. And I was a skater kid. And there were, of course, a lot of Deadhead kids on the fringes of skater culture. And they would, intermingling. And I eventually made a conscious effort to befriend some Deadheads. And I was 15 when the Dead played in Memphis, in my hometown. But I was kind of intimidated to go check them out when I was that young. But Two from the Vault really turned my head around. I eventually got into playing psychedelic rock radio on the college radio station at the University of Missouri. I had a show called 8 Miles High, and the Dead were always just kind of lurking in the background. And then a few years ago, I got a job that was a 45-minute commute, and I had a carpool buddy, and we both just vibed on the Dead. And I got fully just immersed in listening to live Dead stuff all through the year 2020, just because I missed live music, and it sort of kept me rooted in that.
So you're carpooling. Who picks the shows?
Well, in my car, it was the Sirius XM station. In his car, it was him, just on Spotify, like live albums usually. But I really enjoyed the Sirius XM mix because you get hit out of nowhere with all kinds of crazy stuff. I really enjoyed it, and especially the Today in Dead History program. That was always a lot of fun.
You said that when you were younger, you made a conscious effort to befriend Deadheads. Do you just go up to them like, yo, you guys like the Dead?
Well, we were in art class together, and I asked them basically where I could score because they were wearing tie-dye shirts. And I was really into like the Beat Generation and On the Road, and I wanted to score.
Thank you so much for coming on Guest of the Year.
Thank you. It's been a big pleasure.
Aron and Luke will hear 3 tracks, and the lowest in aggregate will get the Guest of the Year shirt. Available in the link in the show notes. Thanks so much for supporting the show. Okay, let's hear the first song of the finals. The guesses are in. That was a Dark Star at Wembley Empire Pool in London, England on April 8th, 1972. Jack sent that in from Lincoln, Nebraska. Thanks, Jack. Let's hear from him now.
Yeah, I chose this Dark Star from London 72. Towards the end of the jam, going into this Sugar Magnolia transition, it turns into a Mind Left Body jam for a couple minutes. Sort of a proto Mind Left Body jam. I think it was the second or third time that's actually mentioned on Jerry Bass as a Mind Left Body jam. If asked, that's my answer of my favorite Dead song. I just can't get enough of it. Just something about it hits me deep inside. I have a CD in my car of like 12 different versions of it. That's all that's on the CD, and I just drive around listening to that over and over. You know, not every day, but some days I definitely do. Yep, there it is.
Right on, Jack. Thanks, man. Aron got exactly 72. Luke was 1 year north at 73. Right on it. Aron, 72. Did you just hear that 72 sound?
Yeah. Europe 72 was like the first official release by the band that really grabbed me, and I was absolutely obsessed with it. And I don't know, there's just something that if I hear a 72 show, it just becomes really identifiable to me. There's some similarity in the playing between the songs, and I couldn't have guessed where that show was from, but yeah, it sounded like Europe 72 to me.
Did you recognize that was coming out of a Dark Star?
No. No, I was trying to figure out exactly what the jam was and where it was going, and I had no clue. But to be honest with you, that happens quite a bit. I'm not like some of the scholars that I've heard on the show in the past. So much of this stuff is feel. It's like half feel, half breaking down the instrumentation. And in this case, it was feel.
Go with your gut like you've been doing. Nice work. Luke guessed 73. Yeah, why 73, Luke?
I couldn't place what song it was, but I was between 72 and 73.
Luke, before we go on to the second song in the finals, how'd you get into the Dead?
I grew up in the DC area. You know, I'm 40. I'll be 47 this year. And they came around in 93 and 94, and I had friends who had I was the oldest of my siblings, but I had friends who had older siblings, and that time I was in high school, it was like, pot was common and popular, and I liked pot. And I knew about the Dead, and I had listened to one from the Vault, and they came in 93, and I went to the parking lot scene. And for some reason, I didn't go in. Maybe I didn't have any money and have a ticket. And 94, the same. I didn't go into the shows at RFK, but I saw him in 95. I saw Jerry in 95 at RFK. Bob Dylan opened for them. It wasn't pretty, but it was still enough of a taste. I started seeing Fish in 94 at George Mason University. And I walked into that venue with a group of friends of mine. I was high school friends of mine. And they all walked into their seats. And I just looked down at the floor, and they was this first song that Dan was right on the stage. And the whole auditorium was like bouncing and moving. And I just was like, what is this world? And I just kind of went down. I got on the floor and I just cruised around and bounced, and I just felt very free. And the Dead had just a little bit of as you both know, a different frequency. It was a weird time when Jerry died on Fish tour. I took a break from seeing Fish for a lot of years, from like late 90s up until 2012, just because it was weird. It just felt like a weird darkness kind of emerged. Jerry's death and everything. And then it got really all of a sudden changed and fun. Music's still really good with Fish. So no variation for me.
Yeah. Could you elaborate on that? I've heard many people mention it. Could you elaborate on that darkness that enveloped the scene?
Yeah. So in the summer of 95, when Jerry died, there was obviously a transition with people who were making money on tour and doing that thing. It seemed like there was by the fall of 95, from the New Year's shows that I saw in 95 when I was a senior in high school, and then the 96 summer shows that I saw the shows at Red Rocks, Fish shows. And it just was like, there was an agitation in a lot of like the tour rat kids. And this is like I graduated high school that year. I was going off to college, and I just could feel a different level of intensity that didn't feel good. And maybe it was drugs that were on the scene at the time. It was heroin, and I'm not talking about for me, but at all. I never went out with those kinds of substances. But that's the best way I can put it. There felt like an eggy intensity. And it was the same thing was happening with Trey. I mean, Trey was going deeper and deeper in his own demises and everything. And for a long time, I kind of had a sense that like, oh man, like what happened with the Dead that's the direction it could go because of the energy of what's happening with Trey. And it's cool that it didn't. Very cool that it didn't.
I've gotten to Fish relatively recently, but I watched that Todd Phillips documentary. It struck me how like Trey seems like just the nicest dude on earth right now. And he seemed like pretty much an asshole back in 1997 or whatever, whenever they filmed it.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. There's the arrogance, and
that was 96, right? Is that when
Yeah.
when it was filmed? Yeah.
So I guess some of the darkness came from on stage then.
I mean, not that I particularly, I just was there because whatever he did was like insane. Like same with Jerry. Even if he was like chin down, he still was Jerry, and
yeah. The performances didn't seem to suffer a whole lot, but not to get too dark, but like it's not really a shock. Like when your band blows up and and all of a sudden you're this amazing musician and you're deified and people think you're God and it doesn't shock me that an escape was necessary, right? So I write a Dead based blog, and I wrote this one post a while back that was titled something like "Deadheads, the worst, greatest fans in the world" or something like that, and I have like hyperbolically basically like blamed all Deadheads for it, and not through any malice, but like through our absolute love of this music and our love of his playing. There was a lot of people who just made his life really, really uncomfortable, and that's just like it comes from this point of like loving the music so much. So
is it like the Deader Than Thou crowd? Is that who you're talking about?
No, I don't. Oh, it's like not to point a finger, but like the Spinners, when you've created a religion that's that believes that Garcia is God, that ain't gonna do him much good, right? And and he felt like he had to. I shouldn't say like I spoke to him about this. I don't want to put words in his mouth or make assumptions, but the band had to insulate themselves from the Deadheads, right? There's no crazier fans on the planet, period. So there's no way that they could like go walk around the lot, like that. There would have been a riot. So they had to hide, and hiding doesn't it. You're in the darkness, right? You're not hiding in the light.
What's the name of your blog, Aaron?
It's called Dad Rock Dead. The blog post I'm working on right now is tentatively called The Road Jimmy Manifesto, because it may be one of my favorite songs, and I know that I'm like I'm an outlier by saying that, but like I went for a walk last couple nights ago and I listened to 14 versions back to back, because I'm actually like breaking down the instrumentation, the way that they played the song over the years, because it's they what was it, 73 was the first time, and they played it like till the very end. I think I saw it 5 times, and the song just captivates me.
I'm a Road Jimmy head myself. What do you think is like the message of that song lyrically?
There's no message, and that's why I love it, because it's like some of Hunter's most ethereal, formless lyrics, and I just like it's a visual song, but it's like totally abstract when I try to think about what that song's about. But then like that first solo, it just always is it's some of the it's I don't want to say, like, to me it's some of the most lyrical soloing that Garcia did, I think. But also I think that it was Keith did some of like his, he outroed the song, and it was some of his most emotional playing as well, to me at least. One thing, like I like why I have to listen to every version, because the distinction to me that's important is when Garcia played slide on the solos versus when he picked them. And my preference is actually the picked versions. And I listened to, like, I think it's like at some point in 76, he stopped playing with a slide. And then the transition, he does like the first solo with a slide, the second solo he picks. And then he sort of bounces back and forth. But I love the picked versions so much.
Aaron, when is the Road Jimmy Manifesto going to be done?
So to make myself sound even more insane, I have to listen to every single version that I can on re-listen first, because I actually, again, I'm fucking nuts. I want to create metrics around it. Because I want to actually graph it and see like when things, like I want to just break down all the instrumentation, and I want to break down the format and the composition as it sort of progressed through the years. Because also, like, in the late 80s and early 90s, that like Garcia had this like really beautiful delay that he would add. It's in the Althea solos, and he really plays it very heavily in those later versions of Road Jimmy. It's just like the shimmery delay that is just like some of my favorite late Garcia soloing.
I love hearing about projects like that, Aaron, and can't wait to see it. All right. Luke has 1 point. Aaron has 0. The idea is to be as low as possible. Let's hear the next mailbag pick.
No reason to get excited. Leave your clan spoiled. There are many young among us who feel that life is spiritual. But you and I admit to that. This is not our fate. Let us not talk false tonight. The hour is getting late.
all along the Watchtower at the Spectrum in Philadelphia on March 17th, 1995.
Oh,
Dude. Oh,
oh.
A very rare 95 on Guest of the Year, sent in by Tom from Vermont. Let's hear from Tom now.
Hey, Guest of the Year. This is Tom from Vermont, sharing with you this track from 3/17/95, which was the first show I got into. And I feel like while 1995 was definitely a year on the decline, clearly leading towards the end, there were some really nice gems out there. And this jam in Watchtower is a prime example of that. Bobby was definitely picking up the heat and picking up the slack from where Jerry left off and kind of carried the majority of the second set. I definitely recommend giving it a listen if you get the opportunity. It's not going to be on anybody's top 10 lists, maybe except for me, and even that's a stretch for me. But I think that this was a unique and not often played year on Guest of the Year, and figured it would be nice to showcase this.
Thanks, Tom. Really, really cool pick. Aaron guessed 92. He was closer. Luke guessed 90. Aaron, why 92?
So I thought I heard some piano, which I attributed to Bruce, and it sounded a little more cohesive than some 91 shows that I was familiar with. So I said, okay, 92. But clearly I was wrong.
And Luke, 90.
Just total stab in the dark, honestly. Like I thought I heard some horn stuff going on. I thought maybe Brentford was Solace. Like the piano I couldn't play. So I just thought maybe I did think 91. I did think 92. And I just thought, I don't know. I just haven't consumed enough of that material those years to really be able to pick out. Definitely not 95. I think I've only listened to like maybe segments of the RFK shows that I saw at best, So stab in the dark.
Aaron has 3 points. Luke has 6. Before we go on to the last song of the finals, Aaron, how did you get into the Dead?
So I'm from Toronto, and short of a couple of years where I lived in Oregon, which was actually where I saw the last Dead shows in 93 at Autzen. They played in the sort of modern era. They played 84 and they played 87. It was at like this amusement park about an hour outside of Toronto. And the 84 show was actually my birthday show, but that I was 13 at the time and I was not interested, and I certainly wasn't going. But I have this theory that when the Dead would come to town, they would like spread the zombie mind virus and new Deadheads would be born. They'd be dragged, or it would just spread. And in 88, my really good friend got into the Grateful Dead, and I tried. I sort of grew up like a new wave and punk kid, and it wasn't until I started listening, like around 87, 86, I started listening to music that was recorded before I was born. And a friend of mine was like trying to get me into it. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. But I hadn't heard the hook yet. I have this belief that every Deadhead, they're like, I think few of us are like, yeah, the very first time I heard this, like hearing it, it grabbed me. And at that time, there's like a lot of real shitty audience tapes out there. And I swear, like I would just hear like these like 5th generation hissy tapes of like a Samson and Delilah or an Iko, and just like songs that never grabbed me. I always heard the wrong songs. And finally, one night I was hanging out with my buddy, and we went to downtown Toronto, and we found some LSD, and we took it and went back to his place. And at some point, he put on 4184 second set, and I heard Terrapin Station for the first time. I heard Drums in Space for the first time, and I heard Morning Dew Come Out of Space. And like everyone listened to the second set of 4184, and I woke up the next day and I was a fucking deadhead. My first show, and I love telling this, not because it's like boastful, but my first show was July 4th, 89 at Rich Stadium in Buffalo. And I mean, if you've heard Trucking Up to Buffalo, like I didn't need any reinforcement after that. I was like, I will see these guys when they come within a day's drive. And I saw 9 shows in 90. I saw Brent's last show and I saw Vince's first 2 shows.
Can you tell us about dadrockdead.com?
Oh, so, a few years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, like I said, I've been writing my whole life and I asked myself, like, I wanted to write, but I was like, what should I write about? And I was like, the only story I can tell is my own. So I started writing about just like being a dad, living in a big city, dealing with all the things that sort of come with that. Like I wrote about my own journey to when I decided to give up alcohol, my upbringing. And I was bearing my soul. And I really had to sort of ask myself if that was okay. And I don't have millions of people reading my blog, but I have no problem being honest about my shortcomings, my mistakes, because I honestly believe like that's how people learn. Like if I can say like I did this and it led me here and damn, I'm pretty happy I'm still alive. Hopefully someone will be like, maybe I should not do that or something like that. I don't know. I'm coming off more altruistic and saint-like than I actually am. But it's funny because I was actually, I like many people, I love Tales from the Golden Road. And I called up the show one day and I was talking to David Gary and I said, I want to do a dead-based blog, but I don't know what I should write about. And they said, just write about yourself, like tell your story. And I was like, yes, actually that I don't know why I needed these 2 guys to tell me that, because that's what I've been doing all along. So I wrote this post that was about, it was about Europe 72. And it was about my dad, who actually the 5th anniversary of his death was just on Sunday. And I just wrote about when I first heard Europe 72, I was really excited about the album. And my dad was a musician and loved music, loved jazz. And I said, I want you to listen to this song. Basically what I said was I could have like put on, from Europe 72, I could have put on, I don't know, pick any short song that's just a sort of straight ahead song. But what I did was I actually put on Truckin' all the way to the end, that deep, deep jam that just goes so far. And I did a bunch of parallels back and forth. And it was really heavy. Like I was actually like crying when I was writing it, but it felt really important to like get all that stuff out. And, that's like, after I don't always like go back and celebrate my own writing, but like I've actually read that post a couple times since it went live, and it's actually pretty meaningful to me. And that's sort of why, like, I wish that my job was just blogging about the Grateful Dead, because it's actually, I put a lot of work into it and it's a lot of time.
I really can't wait to read your blog, as I'm sure all our listeners feel the same way, and all of us on the call here. Thank you, Aron. That's awesome. Let's hear the third song in the finals. The guesses are in. It was a caution jam at Cape Cod Coliseum in Massachusetts on October 27th, 1979. That was sent in by Craig from San Rafael. Thanks so much, Craig. Let's hear from him now.
Hey guys, this is Craig in San Rafael, and I'm excited to be throwing this little tune out for you tonight. It's the Caution Jam from 10/27/79 at the Cape Cod Coliseum in good old Massachusetts. And the reason I chose this is because it represents really a lot of this show, some of the most exciting playing that the Dead were doing, certainly in 79. Anything post 74, this is one of the best jams out there. So gets pretty exciting, drop it into the other one next, and there's a crazy long Franklin's Tower and a dancing earlier in the set. This is a great one. It might even be a release now. Anyway, that's why I pick it, because it's awesome. Hope you enjoy. Good night.
Thank you, Craig. Rock and pick. Aron was closer, 82. Lucas, 85. Aron's the new champ of Guest of the Year. Congrats, Aron. Why 82?
Part of the way that I try to figure this stuff out is like when I think of the year, I'll like start to like either try to find ways to if I have to go back or I have to go forward in terms of years. So I'm like, is this 84? Is that an 83 or is that an 82? 83? And like I'll sort of do that. And I could tell that it wasn't 84 if I'm using that as like some sort of watermark. It could have been 80, 81, 82, 83. Nothing would have shocked me. I was just spitballing.
Well, it worked out. Congratulations. Nice work. Luke, 85.
I don't know. I just felt like a little bit of like the maybe like I think it's a Frost amphitheater show that I've listened to a good bit. It's a little bit of noodling in there that I thought maybe that's like similar time frame. I also kind of knew I'm at a deficit already, and I thought it's down right in the middle.
Yeah. Got to go for it. Luke, really great chatting. I really appreciate you coming on, and great run deep in the finals there.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Thanks, Aron. Awesome to be on. I love talking Dead stories with people who are really into it and have gotten to experience it and are versed in it. And
yeah,
Aron, you're a man of many eloquent words, and I look forward to looking.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's like one thing that I really love about the show is if it was just about like the competition, I don't think that people would be that interested. But the fact is, you get to hear people's stories, you get to hear people's opinions, and that is what makes the show. And also, Mike, as I said before, you're a great host, and you know how to keep the conversation going. So that to me is why I think this show is like super, super special. And it's like, from like an old guy looking at like younger heads, it's like just one of those things that just makes me so happy that, that we've got like all these, new people coming to this music and taking it in directions that certainly wasn't around 30 years ago. So I love it. It's great.
Thanks, Aron. Really appreciate that. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to all the contestants. Thanks to everyone who sent in a mailbag. Again, the shirt will be up for pre-order for 48 hours, and then it's gone. So grab it if you're interested. Thank you so much for all the support. For all the show links, including our YouTube channel, go to guesttheyear.net. That's also where the shirt is. That's also available via the show notes. If you want to be a contestant on the show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at info@guesttheyear.net. Shout out to Dillon for drawing the poster, and James and Jack for helping out behind the scenes. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks to the amazing tape whose recordings made the show possible. Congratulations to Aron for going on to next week's episode, and to our other contestants, thanks for playing. And remember, it is all one song anyway.
And I bid you good night. Good night. Good night. And I bid you good night. Good night. Good night.